Body high, swimming in my bed. We ignite, we're slipping like sand. Don't you know you excite me like that? When you touch me like that, got me running right back. Want it, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it now. I'm gonna show you how. Take my breath away. 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 Take one more shot. If you take one more shot, ooh, baby, we might just make it to heaven. If you stay up all night, if I stay up all night, ooh, baby, we might just make it to heaven.
Alrighty, Roo folks. So thank you so much for joining us on a wonderful, wonderful Friday evening. We are wrapping up the week, and big shout out to my stream team partners. Mr. Nick Lozano got the afternoon started off for us, man, streaming live for 2 hours. And then of course it runs into my buddy Mr. Travis Latchner in the Beast Node. That's always a wonderful event to be a part of and to attend. So kudos to both of you gentlemen for bringing it in. And then I'm bringing it home with sort of the nightcap, right? So this is how we're going to bring it in, guys. So thank you so much for joining the show, guys. Everybody who's always part of the community, you guys rock it. So thank you for watching. So let's get started, guys, kind of with this evening's guest. Now, it's funny that I mentioned, of course, Mr. Travis Latchner, because that's how we got introduced. Travis kind of, and that's a good thing about having other people that you closely work with and are like associates and friends who give you the opportunity to bring interesting people into kind of your life and your situation. So I'm always excited to get somebody to offer me any kind of recommendations or anybody. This evening's guest was, we had a good pre-show consultation. We had a good talk, and I like a lot of the things that he has to say. One of the good things about having somebody who, again, somebody like our guest come on this evening. He's got a lot of good stories to kind of share about what his journey was and what's kind of led him to where he is. I mean, we can touch on so many things. Entrepreneurship. He was a U.S. Army veteran. MIT alum, guys. Come on, these are kind of qualifications that you don't usually get all together, and I usually don't get these kind of guests. So I'm kind of thrilled that I do. So guys, please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Alexander David McMath. How are you doing, my friend? Thank you so much for taking the time. Excuse me. Let me just get a few things squared away, and then we'll be good to go. There we go. I'll bring it more into focus there.
Thank you for having me, Gab.
No,
Don't oversell it, man. Those are two hard acts to follow. Travis.
He is, man. He is a they don't call him a super producer for nothing. Um, Again, he is pretty cool individual to kind of know and have the opportunity to have a conversation with him. So, um, man, and again, like I said, when I get a recommendation for somebody, sometimes I've been very, very leery because some of these, some of the individuals that I've got recommendations from on other people, they're um, quite unique when you talk to them on the surface, but there's not too much to it. But like
Right.
more of like I'm glad we had a conversation prior, so I got the opportunity to kind of sort of fill you out a little bit. And what I liked about it is that one of the cool things that we talked about was the fact that like not only as you going into like entrepreneurship, and well, let's just start with the journey that way. Let's go ahead and start how you started out from um, first of all, MIT alum, and then going from with a U.S. being a U.S. Army veteran. That's again, those are two really huge qualifications just to have on top of that. And then of course, what you're doing now with your business and going out there and providing people, with so many different services, you help businesses kind of pretty much find who they are and what their voices are, man, and that's pretty important. So. Thank you so much, and let's go ahead and start a little bit about your journey and what's kind of led you.
So, and first of all, okay, let me say that there are a couple things you touched on that are very important to me. One is sincerity, and the other one is depth. You're telling me you got recommendations that didn't quite have the substance, and that may or may not be the fault of the person coming on the show to contribute. That might have actually led the person who pointed that person to you, and it's like, why weren't you paying attention? You can also ask the person, why don't you, I mean, I guess I may as well just go in, it's Friday night, why don't you have
Yes.
substance, right? And I appreciate that I passed the eye test with you, given that you've been running this property, it's dear to you, and you're now telling me, hey, I appreciate the rabbit hole goes deep with you, Alex. And Alex believes that this is something that's important for people to do. Be who you are from back to front, make it interlinked, communicate it in a way that shows that it actually means something to you. Don't get caught unprocessed, I guess is one way to put it. You mentioned one of my blog posts to that effect where I mentioned that it's like homework matters, having the depth matters, integrating your knowledge matters. And the other thing I'll say on that note is that I'm really glad to know Travis. I'm really glad to know you now. I appreciate
Yes.
you having me as a guest. And it's something I call, and here comes one of my pithy catchphrases, the community of competence, right?
Yes.
You got to have those people who are about that life, who have gone for the sincerity and the depth. And so you get to sit with, bear with, do your best together, know that, hey, it doesn't always go right, but you were at least prudent. You at least made the effort. And so that's how I approach my business internally with the 3 people working for me, externally with the leads and the clients. It's not for everybody, but I'm finding my community.
Hey, and that's all it really matters, man. Is that fact that you don't have to have this huge client base to go make impact. And I've always heard it. For some people, if you have 5 or 6 very well manicured clients, they can sustain you for a very long time, especially when those people build a lot of trust, they build a lot of things, and they get so much from you. I mean, that's just that there's just that level of reciprocity back and forth where you're like, man, I really understand, and Alexander understands me, and we just have this great communication between us.
Exactly. And in a high trust environment, you can communicate much faster. You can collaborate in more depth. You get that escalating commitment and that uncommon effort that yields uncommon results. And yeah, you don't need a huge client book. You need people who are aligned with you, and you're able to be a catalyst to their efforts. And you can not only You can have the revenue target you want if that's something that's important to you. You can also build that body of knowledge in, and I won't use depth again, I'll say density.
There you go. There you go. And again, for a lot of folks, when somebody gets, excuse me, so when somebody finds somebody that they really feel like they're comfortable working with, right? It's not only is it, first of all, getting to that level of trust and connection with somebody, right? But it's also being able to have that level of uh, being honest in communication with folks is because some people would bite their tongue, and I don't think that's not how you really get to the heart of figuring out somebody's business or personal life, right? You really have to have that really open line of communication between folks, because that's the best way I'm going to be able to understand and find and will help you build and create solutions for what you're looking for in any problem that you have, right?
Yes, yes, and yes.
I mean, and for me, that's why I love what you're doing, because you're not saying I got to target these big businesses. At some point, you might scale, but right now, it's small to mid-sized businesses that you're finding, and you're helping these people again find and craft that message that they might not be able to find themselves, right?
Exactly. And not for nothing, we've referred to my journey. I've lived through the bad version of this implementation. You're trying to be all things to all people. You're trying to hedge. You're trying to manage expectations. People really kind of sniff out the level of constraint that's on you, though, and the level of discomfort. And choices compound. And so when you're curating in the wrong direction, those bad choices are compounding. They're wearing on you, and just your confidence doesn't go anywhere good. More to the point, I would say that your competencies don't go anywhere good. And so these businesses, especially, you have a small and medium professional service business, like an IT vendor or in the contracting space or defense services. Those are my best verticals. And there are so many. There are much bigger ones. Procurement agencies like government or large enterprises are not set up to really see you or care about you. And it just becomes this thing where you're blindly chasing revenue. You can't necessarily figure out what your unique value proposition is, what niche you're going to dominate, how even necessarily to explain to the talent under you what your production values, to borrow a media term, are. And it just turns into something I'm rather familiar with from my personal life, which is, I guess, a cavalcade of random pain. And so the nice thing about running a consulting practice is that you get to take your own medicine all the time. And I know a little bit of what that's like, fixing my own problems of flow down of intent to talent, pipeline of new deals, revenue, cash flow, these things. It's been a wild year. Rona Founders, what's up? I started in February. Love last year. But all that to say, my personal transformation is actually the practicum of the prototype for how I'm sure that I know how to solve business problems, because it's all about the flow of information from the inside out.
No, and again, man, that's why, for like, whenever people who when I hear like entrepreneurs who want to go out and kind of venture out on their own, right? That's for a lot of them, it is for them. For a lot of them, it's not knowing the direction that sometimes they might want to go in, right? And you can find someone who can simplify problems, who can do things right, and use a skill set like, particularly like what you have, to help them kind of hone in on what they want to create. I mean, that's for a lot of folks, that I can understand why people find the attraction and wanting to work with somebody like yourself. Is like saying, man, I need that in my life. I need that sort of direction. Because again, for a lot of individuals, starting a business for them is new territory, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so somebody who's got the mindset to kind of mind map out what a good plan would be to create and how to operate inside the space and the parameters that somebody gives you, right? Is to say, this is what we can do, man. This is what we can actually build. So what is the process for you whenever you take on a new client, or when somebody comes to you and says, Alexander, listen, I need this in my life. Look, these are the variables that I have. How can you help me?
And so, by the way, Alex is fine. Alexander takes a couple more zeros on the bank account. I mean, foundation named after Alexander David McMath, but can't help the poor if you're one of them. Did Jay-Z say? I think.
Yes. And that is the Jay-Z line.
If you're noticing the background, I mean, I still keep my overhead low out here in Colorado Springs. What I'll say to your point, though, is that, if you're an entrepreneur, you're personally invested. You cannot be avoided. I tell people that there are two things everybody has. One is a talent. The other is a story. And people have to remember that they're in control of how the story is told and to whom. And two things, right? Talent doesn't exactly change. It has many different facets, but the presentation changes more than the actual substrate of talent, right? For me, to touch briefly on the journey, right? So I didn't have a whole lot growing up in Oakland, California, and then scholarships every step of the way, prep school, the institute, try to start up once, as one does. Anyway, finding that not working, it's like, well, what else is important for you to do in terms of significance and service? I guess I'm still young enough for the military. Went ahead and was a commissioned officer in military intelligence in the Army. So I landed here in Colorado. All that to say, though, the stuff that follows you. And, you mentioned, okay, these are two unique tags, qualifiers that people don't necessarily have. Not the same as making people appreciate you, though. What came with me from childhood, what compounded during young adulthood, what might have been exacerbated by service. Next thing I know, I have some rough mental health stuff going on. I'm the prototypical dysfunctional veteran. I'm 300 pounds. I feel unemployable because regular jobs just weren't for me. In terms of not like I would, how would you say it? Just you're saying I'm an acquired taste, and if you're a hiring manager and it's like, wait, this guy is a little difficult to process and he's not an exact fit, you can't even blame people. They don't. It's too much effort, and that was on me. Come into the humility and the empathy to say it was on me, different pile of inner work, but I did it. And so now realizing what I had to do with my love of complex problems, the curation, intake, and synthesis of information into new products going out, it was like, all right, how do I make this interest of mine useful in its presentation to other people so that I can actually have the opportunity to serve them the way I think I can, instead of having to hate mirrors. All right, what are we gonna do? And I had to. So the catalyst of all this was about 1.5 years ago. My mother passed. I don't recommend that to anybody, but it will happen.
It will. 100% of the people born will die, right?
Don't remind me. My school friend was like, "It's been 20 years since we went to state." Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. Frank, how you doing?
Yes.
But the fact that my mother left the earth not knowing if I had it together, despite her massive investment in me and my siblings, I could. Anyway, it could have destroyed me. However, I figured, all right, enough's enough already. Reach down, grab them, let's go. And I am, of course, oversimplifying. More accurately, I had a lot of problems, and there was a weaving together of value from different people who helped me. But two things informed it. One, my desire to get it right, and two, the fact that I was putting the right information to myself and to each of these people who were helping me. Right about the time I turned the quarter is when I realized, instead of being helped by the veteran-facing nonprofit out here, the Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center, how y'all doing? I was now giving fundraising speeches for them. I was like, okay, maybe we figured something out. Maybe I actually am communicating well now. And it was like, wait. Everything is communications. Here's a fun one. Decisions are made by people. You know, when I was going to those, somebody says I remind them of a drill sergeant. My personal trainer was former drill sergeant, and officers when enlisted, you need to keep them separated. That offering.
Yeah.
So all that to say, you know, that hiring manager at that Fortune 500 who, yeah, we like veterans. Oh, but this one is a little off kilter. Drake.
Doesn't fit in the box, right? Doesn't fit in the box.
Right. And it's like I had to, there's, you know, I don't want to make it sound as though I made myself fit into the box because you're talking to me. That's clearly not it. It was more that I found a way to make myself readily available in the way of how people want their problem solved. So yeah, decisions are made by people. People make decisions based on what their context is for processing information. You design the information for the person you're going before because we are only what we can prove by doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we will not get the opportunity to prove by doing without providing some kind of persuasion, credibility, authority to the people who control the opportunities, right?
Yes, 100%.
We can make a totally facile metaphor with dating here.
Yeah.
But I think you get the point.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
All that to say, and this is my pithy tagline of McMath Solutions, messages make markets. And there is a market for the business as a whole towards its customers.
Mm-hmm.
There is a market for the business to scale facing the talent market.
Mm-hmm.
And there is even what you would call the internal market between the stakeholders of the business, because when you start having these breakdowns in service delivery or, this cost isn't controlled, this project's behind schedule, why isn't there knowledge management? Employee 100 is not as good as employee 10. What are you talking about? You're talking about the design and flow of information. So it's a management consulting firm, which is to say, what do you do about complex problems to improve the outcomes of a business strategically or in its operations or in its marketing? And I always say the answer has to do with people making decisions based on the information they have. And given I guess I'm not overselling it if I say that I unlocked a lot of value from my life.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it works.
Well, is that the first thing that you dig for though when clients come to you, is look for that information that they're probably not processing, right? I mean, where are the angles?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to make it sound like I know so much because that's got me into trouble before. It's basically that, and this is something I struggle with facing my own team.
Mm-hmm.
People lose track of how much they know. They get too close to their work, and then there are things that they leave implicit that they need to say explicitly. So there are a couple ways this works, right? If you have a new business and you're basically still trying to establish product market fit, then it's a matter of taking that closely held experience, which can be presented in many different ways, and learning to align the delivery of expertise with the selling of it. And then the third step of alignment is with the customer's key activities and outcomes, right? And the metaphor I always go for is sausage. Anyway, one makes sausage, one sells it informed by how it was made. And to be clear, the outcome of the customer it doesn't end at the checkout line. It ends after the dinner party where the guests are saying, man, I had a great time with Gabe, and I wonder where he got that sausage because it tasted damn good.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
you as the sausage maker selling the sausage, or me as the sausage maker, whatever. Whoever made the sausage,
it's good.
Be thinking all the way through that stack of value until the guests are saying, good.
Right. I mean, and who doesn't love a good sausage?
And I can, just based on those three factors, you can guess that there are multiple. Diplomatic there. Multiple opportunities for improvement with any given business.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that's again, it takes the mindset though to look at it from that perspective. And
Mm,
I think that's where sometimes a lot of people who get into business or come up with ideas don't see past that point, right?
right.
And that's the hard thing is for somebody to see is to I equate it to almost like being an architect. An architect can sometimes build it, right? But it takes you have to be able to see it almost as though it is in real life, right? The way you design, the way you look at things, you look at it from a whole nother level than where somebody who just sees it and says, I just see a plan of blueprints. But it's
Mhm.
like, no, there's more to it. There's actually more in depth as far as what you're actually supposed to be looking for. And there's so many things that again, when you have the foresight to see these things, that's why like when people have that ability, a lot of those people you turn out are usually the quote unquote geniuses or the people who end up very well because they actually see beyond another level before we do. Um,
Right.
because again, for some people, it is that filter that they put in front of themselves that limits how far they can see or how far they can actually imagine something actually becoming. So that's why like somebody who does something like what you do, just to particularly say is you can actually be a visionary and see something to another level or somebody else again. And that's valuable for some folks. Again, that's why I say it's a value to have that ability to be able to do that. Because again, for some folks, it is very, very hard to see their own, especially a creation of their own
Mhm.
to grow, to see it, to be able to say, you know what, this can grow beyond what I could actually imagine it being, because because we put that, whatever it is, the fear, the procrastinate, whatever you want to call it, resistance in front of us. I mean,
I
that's very,
You're a Pressfield guy, huh?
yes,
Awesome.
Stephen Pressfield. Yes. If the guys don't know I'm glad you picked up on that.
I don't miss much.
You don't miss much, but see, that's what it takes. So that's what I mean. So when
Yeah.
somebody has
Hey,
these conversations,
anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Come on already. Let's go. And I don't like that G word, by the way. Just to my earlier point, I know how little it can do for a person.
hmm
You gotta be present. You gotta meet people where they are. And anybody who's ever worked for me or known me is probably saying I'm a hypocrite, but this is me trying, okay? And like it was, to the point of the person mentioned, the drill sergeant during basic training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. There's me. I'm 24. I'm educated, allegedly. I'm surrounded by 19, 18-year-olds from more remote parts. And it eventually came to the point where the two people out of 60 who liked me were telling the rest, McMath really doesn't think he's better than you or nothing. I heard him talking to his girlfriend the same way.
right? So it's like,
Had a
you know,
thing. I hope you're doing well.
that's the perspective, right? It's like, oh my gosh, he's a he's a condescending asshole, right? They think that because they don't
Going right for it, huh? It's like,
yeah. So
yo,
they don't understand sometimes that that is just a persona of somebody because that is their makeup. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so
It gets
that's why
worse that way because even the ones who move past, okay, he really is trying to be helpful. To your point, you're like, yo, people who can deal with complexity are so cool. Well, I'm glad you have that perspective. People resist complexity, and depending on what you think about evolution or however you imagine our wiring came together, there's this idea that we have the heuristics we have because complexity is overwhelming. And so not only is complexity is overwhelming, but even when I think I'm at a viable critical path from, okay, this seems complex, but I think we'll look here, here, and here. I have had it said to me by a mentor of mine in the consulting space that people resist answers because it comes with accountability. Alternately, when you see people in business pursuing such shiny objects, uh, and I just commented this somewhere on LinkedIn. Daniel Murray, I think, is where I commented. That's a great guy. Get
hmm.
him on here.
Ooh.
I had said people resist the idea that not everything is for everyone because the alternative requires more introspection than is comfortable. And I have lived the mistake. I've been, you know, when I was getting out of the army, it's like I'm sure I can do something. I'm supposed to be smart or something. And then it was like, well, what about this industry? What about that industry? Meanwhile, my wife at the time is like, where the heck is my money?
She's
And
like, yeah.
you know, so I had a little pursuit of happiness experience there. But you know, really you gotta have focus, I guess is what I'm telling you. And that's hard for people because even with focus, there's a certain alignment. So it's the idea that I help people solve the problems they need solved so that they can get to solve the problems they want to solve.
Mm, that's a t-shirt right there. Really is. Because again, like I say, you know, that is the one thing. And I grew up in a entrepreneurial household, so I know what the spirit was of wanting to go out there, excuse me, and create. But again, one of the things that saw growing up in an entrepreneurial household as well is that there were certain points, certain thresholds where you have to have somebody outside help to come in here and help you find again a
Mhm.
different path. There's certain ways to grow, and I think once you start, and when you think about it logically, the way that when you start growing, you look for that again, that outside perspective. You spent so long creating something, you spent so long building something up, and
Mhm.
being able to rely on a different set of eyes looking on the same problem, right? You look at it and you go, I just can't solve this, right?
Mhm.
And then you can go out there and talk to somebody, and
Right.
within a matter of minutes, they can sometimes sit there and say, "Here it is."
Mhm.
I mean,
Or
that is simple.
it only takes a small push for you to be moving again. And I
Mhm.
do want to shout out, I think, Ani in Marbella. Got
Yes.
a Daniel Kahneman fan here.
Yes.
That's slow thinking. It's a great book. Uh,
Yes.
and what I would say to that point, and thank you for that, is that I guess my big problem or strength, I'm not sure some days, is that I believe in rutting the slow thinking until it becomes fast to a much
Oh.
rigorous author, Malcolm Gladwell, who I don't usually say too many good things about. The whole, you know, Blink could have been like a blog post. However, the idea that people take so many reps at thinking critically about something that they know it even before they know it. All
Mm.
right, cool. I can get down with that. Um, not least because my team keeps telling me that, what do you mean you already know how it's supposed to be?
Well, and again,
There she is again. Yeah.
yeah.
Here's my other pithy catchphrase. Process sets us up for success.
Mm, mm. Well, uh, let me ask you this then.
Sure.
So, having that where you say, your team says, "Well, how do you already know?" Right? I mean, um, how quickly? Well, I'm kind of thinking why, because I want to pick your brain a little bit about how quickly does it take for you to come to these kind of conclusions that, again, that you already see that, or you've already kind of formulated how that's the approach that should already have been taken. And then how do you kind of relay that to somebody who is your client and say, this is something that we should have already been doing, but let's go ahead and kind of get that into the process now? Because again, like I said, um, I've talked to other people who, again, and even myself, right? It's learning how to kind of starting a business. Like I said, I've grown up in an entrepreneurial household. I've seen these sort of things, but there's at certain points where you say, how do I develop the structure? How do I develop excuse me, the um, not just the structure, but also how to also be able to look at my business idea and kind of formulate a way for that I think will be able to help me either monetize or grow at some other point. So, what are some of the things that you go into when you talk about this with, especially like let's just say already like an established mid-sized client? I mean, when you take somebody on like that, what are the process that you go through when they're looking for somebody to kind of help them bridge that gap and go to the next level so they can kind of maybe possibly grow and scale.
Right. And thank you for asking. So no matter how big the company gets, something is keeping that CEO up at night.
Mhm.
Or there's some constraint. We don't live in Star Trek. We don't have a post-scarcity society. And so there is something that seems like they can't get there from here. And to be clear, obviously, I don't know everything. There's a lot I'm still figuring out. And to your point, you're like, don't they know this should have already been done? Okay, even I know you can't say that.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean I don't occasionally. It usually goes poorly for me.
Well, and like I say, sometimes it's just being too close to the situation, and it's the whole saying. Somebody gives you that good advice, you just can't take, though. I mean, there's
Right.
there's, yeah, right. I mean, it's some of the things where somebody might take it as you being either overcritical or overstating boundaries when you're just actually being truthful to who your character is, right? I mean, that's what I said. Learning how to understand and read with people.
It's like, that might make sense for you, but I just don't see how I can do that.
Yeah.
Or, there's a certain scope and sensitivity that happens. Like, apparently if you have kids learning to count sometimes at a certain age, 5, 6, 7, and then just a lot. Well, okie dokie, kid. But in adults, it's not cute. And it's like that seems like too much. I want to punt on it mentally. And I'm like, why did I take this meeting? But to your point, though, and so this is a thing that I want people to believe about me, even though maybe I don't sound like it. You really do, to serve people and to provide value as an advisor and a partner to another business with your business. You have to practice humility, gratitude.
Ooh.
And I say practice, and everybody who can hear my tone of voice says, yeah, practice some more. But I am practicing. And that's something as a result of now having a team, knowing that I need their help, knowing I cannot do everything myself, knowing that I owe to them to develop them as we're out here delivering to clients, it keeps going deeper. And so finding a way there are a couple things that have to happen. You have to find a way to meet people where they are. I really like that term.
Yes.
And then once you're at that ground level with them, seeing what they see, fearing what they fear, because I have read something to the effect of, if something doesn't make sense to you, imagine how you would have to think for it to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a way out, right? And my crew, I'm looking at this message that just said crew. And my view on this is, I call it thinking in minimum viable, right? You need not think about what's all the way over there so much as if you can just plan backwards from over there, one step. What's the first thing I could do? And so to your point about product market fit is like, I suspect I understand how to make sausage. All right. How do I get to a company? How do I disrupt? Let me remember some sausage companies real quick. Hillsour Farms.
Okay.
Idell's. And how many sausages can he name? Oh, wow. I'm thinking of King's Cup now. Okay. All that to say, how do I make my dream real? All right. The first thing you probably got to do is validate that market for whatever kind of artisanal sausage you're making. So who can you get to taste it? All right. Then maybe you start thinking about what licensing and what food safety certifications and standards you have to make so that you can do that first run, cranking the casing or whatever you do in your kitchen, go to the farmer's market. And step by step, eventually you're getting that distribution deal with, I don't know, Trader Joe's. I'm just making this up, of course.
Of course, yes.
So that's really how you deal with it, is you have to meet people where they are and provide them the small steps. Because I get it now in my mid-30s. it's not common to say, hey, I love complexity. Let's look at all these ideas at once. And even I, not for nothing, rough mental health stuff, it's possible for me to brick my own hardware.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's dive into that just a little bit because you piqued me right at that point. So at growing and developing, building a team, what are some of the things, like you said, you're trying to help build them up? What are some of the things that you kind of instilled, or what are the kind of things that you maybe mention or bring up to your team and say, hey, this is something that's not only going to, help us as a team to help build, but it's also going to help you grow as a person or individual. I mean, this is going to help you elevate in some terms of how you have a mindset and perspective like that. What are some of the things that you've done, not only in your personal life, but also to help some of these other people around you now that are in your stead and in your care, help them grow around you as well, so that each of you become more vital to what you're building?
And that's exactly it. I did at some point manage to learn the lesson that I don't want other people who are me.
Ah, okay.
And so I have a pretty diverse team. We've kept it even between 2 guys and 2 girls. And that really wasn't intentional, but I guess it's good.
Yeah.
All that to say, how do you explain to them you want to help them grow? Well, first you ask them where they want to grow to.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I onboard a team member, and I've done this a few times now, I actually have I have a set of documents, one of which is like this 7, it's a letter, but it has basically 7 short answer questions. And it's like, tell me what you think this company is. Tell me what you think is a strength of yours. What's an opportunity for improvement? What cultural things matter to you? What skills do you want to acquire? Where do you think, aligned with the company's objectives, you think you can best contribute? So, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, gravitas is an important thing, and to that effect, one of my team members, who's actually now pretty much running the content strategy for the company, I was like, honestly, dude, business acumen, such as it is not this monolithic thing that you have or do not have. You're not going to wake up one morning and be the gray eminence. No, I need you to just start saying your insights today with a little gravitas. Imagine, and again, here's the facile dating metaphor. Now that we're on an age and we are trying to be more wholesome as partners, we can look back and we can think of the times when we were out doing illegitimate things. And if you just said something like,
Yeah.
baby, being good to you is its own reward.
What a line. Hold on. Wait a minute. I got to write this down. This is actually,
you have to understand, right? I'm telling you that in my 30s, I was 300 pounds. In my teens, I was fat anyway. And then in the interim, I stopped being fat, and it was like, wait, I'm believable to women? Okay, that's new. and it took me a minute to lean into that. Likewise, start a business, career pivot, advising nonprofits, sales, all of it. You got to believe in yourself a little bit. And so at that point, here's yet another pithy thing I've come up with. I write them all down. And that I recommend to people. Yeah. But book number 1, if I can ever finish writing it, is called Messaging to Ourselves. And the 2 is in parentheses, right? And so what happens is you parse that is you're either talking to yourself so that you can, believe in yourself and be convincing when you go out there, or assuming you've done the work to know yourself, now you're messaging yourself to the world. Ooh. So that's why it's called that. And so, on the subject of one of my associates, Joel Miranda, great guy out here in Colorado, came to it from a background in both technical writing and nonprofit operations. And I've been very grateful to have him. I was like, I need you to just understand that maybe you don't love being on a call with me and then one of my fraternity brothers, therefore an MIT alum as well. However, you belong here. We want you here. You've said useful things. Just, freaking, you're okay. And I want you to lean into that. You have told me, I don't think I'm talking out of school here, because I want, by saying it publicly, for him to know that it will be so if I have anything to do with it. You told me you don't want to be seen as ordinary. Well, you're in the right place, because I can show you a few things about what's uncommon.
Folks, knowledge is being dropped. I don't know if you're paying attention, guys. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are, but
they glazed over about 20 minutes
ago. Yeah, exactly. Though, but this is, you can go watch on the replay, because there is value, tons of value in actually what you're saying. In just to be honest, these are the kind of things that I, again, love to hear people bring out into the world, because number one, if people don't know who you are or don't know your voice, they don't know what you bring. And I think that's why, like, I hope that at some point that book does come out. I hope at some point that people find it very interesting, that it sells a lot, because again, that's why I believe that somebody somewhere, someday, somewhere, somebody's going to pick up a book that says, I read, just like you were naming the quotes of Stephen Pressfield and everybody else, there'll be a quote or something in there said, you know what, I'm going to quote Alexander David McMath here real quick and tell you, and yeah, you're going to smirk, but again, this is the part about it that is real.
Now that was a real smile. I hope for that.
Yeah, I hope for that as well, because
I'm trying to reach that level.
Exactly.
People are like, why are you, don't you want to sleep? And I'm like, no, I want to be like David Ogilvy or Thomas Sowell or Charles Spurgeon.
There you go. I mean, there's, and that's for me the same sort of deal. People ask me, I'm writing a book as well, right? As we're talking, I'm writing a book as well. Mine's a little bit more towards what my passion is, creative writing, but it is what I'm going out there to do, and I'm still doing these things. And people go, "Aren't you tired?" Or what? To me, it's not even that. It's like I've found myself. So when I operate inside of what I'm doing, I'm living inside of my gift. Whatever my gift is, this is where I'm operating in. This is where I feel so comfortable. It doesn't even feel like I do any kind of work at all. So I get up with the instant joy in the morning to go, bam, I'm on it again, baby. This is, I got to get up. I'm upright. Let's go.
It's like, let's go. And for my part, I have wasted enough time. I've lived with that regret. I've lived with that shame. Here's another, because apparently I can't stop. The opposite of hard is not easy. It's soft. Apparently that's a 4-letter word to me. Because, when you do die with your song inside you, when you do, that's Thoreau. When you allow your fire to go out, Ayn Rand. When you hide your lamp under a bushel, Bible. When everybody agrees, come on. So when you do those things, though, just the person who suffers most is actually yourself. And you end up doing worse things to yourself than whoever would criticize you could do to you.
Exactly, man.
So, and you may as well just lean in, press on, push it to the limit, whatever you want to say. I could possibly have a more healthy work-life balance, but at the same time, I really feel like I have things that I need to get out of myself and give to others. And because I didn't used to believe that. I didn't used to believe. And here's one more point I have to make on a kind of a spiritual level. It's like, you can become prideful without being successful. So that was me. And it's like, I feel, like a Jordan Peterson nightmare speech, I feel entitled and bitter and jealous and vengeful and all these things. And it's like, we have got to stop this. So now, work until they cannot deny you are serving them. I'm actually a lot happier that way.
Did you hear that, folks? If you're watching, clip that, because that is a bomb and a half that he just dropped. I love that you just shared that. So, Alex, I'm going to ask you. This is the question that I've asked every guest that has come on this show. It is one that I formulated from my very second episode, and I've continued to ask it just because I love hearing perspective. So here it goes. Um, so when the book is said and done on Alexander David McMath, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind, and what is it that you want to be remembered for?
I want to have not only set an example, but also thoroughly worked through and built with people. Again, the idea of sit with, bear with. And I want to be remembered as somebody who empowered people in truth.
Mm,
You know, like
mm,
there's a lot of confusion between, I guess, empowering in truth versus enabling in things that don't necessarily serve people. And maybe I'm a bit traditionalist in the way that I think there's a right and wrong way to do things. However, if we don't necessarily believe in that traditionalist way, then I still get to come back around and have my lived experience, or however that goes, whereby what I believe I need to be sharing my truth. And all that to say, insofar as I think I have something to offer, it's not necessarily that I want to be remembered. It's that if people come alongside me and they see that the wake of
mm.
life conduct of my life, brands or experiences, as they say, but if they're happy with how I'm doing things, assuming I've done things in a way that are to be pleasing, then
Mhm.
I want people to feel comfortable with the fact that they can ask me. I will help them. I will meet them where they are. Siri thinks I'm talking to her. Hey, Siri, I'm here for you. And, you know, I want to be able to lift people up based on my example and show them how to do things in the same integration and depth that I do them in, not have to apologize for it, know that they can go forth boldly and serve other people in the same way.
Oh, oh, sometimes I just really love to take in. Again, this is why for me, hearing that perspective come from every individual that I ask it, oh, it's it literally invigorates me so much so that you know at the end of and I'll do this tonight when I get off of here. A lot of the stuff that you told me will go written down in what I journal after every guest that I have on, because same way I ask that question, it is how I'm also formulating my answer to that question. It's ever evolving every single time. So what you're telling me here, when I'm listening here, I'm like, man, I that really resonated a lot with me of how I hopefully get to do the same thing as well when my time has come. So again, that's why I just kind of talk about it, because again, this answer could change in 20 years. There could be another perspective where you're at a whole different point of life. But for this moment, for where it is right now, it is pincushion in that timeline, and I have that to kind of hold on to for a very long time. So thank you so much for sharing that, man, and I thank you for sharing a lot of the stuff that you came on here and told uh, everybody who's been listening and been part of the conversation, man. I really do appreciate it. Um, and then this is why I tell everybody every night I strive to look for individuals very much like yourselves, and sometimes they're brought to me, but it nevertheless, what I pull out of every single person that I get the opportunity to have a conversation with, it adds so much out into the universe. Whether or not you believe this, somebody might go back and watch this episode, and it could be one thing that you just said in there that's going to change their life, or it's going to change the way they look at value. They're going to change a lot of things, and it has to be put out there every single night. Just as easily as death and destruction and everything else can be created, so can this sort of narrative that we're talking about right now be put out into the world.
And that's exactly it, you know. It's like, what do we want with another person doing consulting? What do we want with another book? How many of these things already exist? Thing is, though, until everybody gets it together, another voice can't hurt.
No, it cannot. It cannot, just as easy. And for those who don't believe that something like this really matters, I always tell them, look at it from the other end of the perspective. And when they say, well, what do you mean by that? I say, well, look, like somebody's one voice, like Adolf Hitler, right? One man, one voice. Yes, it was the other end of evil. Just as if people believe in good, there's evil, right? But his voice and what he was able to do, right? That just kind of says, imagine it, reverse engineer it, and do what you can to create good or whatever it is into the world, man. I believe that is totally 100% possible.
You know, like not for nothing, the most evil person that ever existed, give or take, I guess Judas
Hmm.
Iscariot. He certainly understood information, and
Hmm.
just rough to think about how badly that went for tens of millions of people. Uh, Not for nothing, the times in my life where I really, like I said, hated mirrors, couldn't stand the fact that I was still alive. I remembered the people I'd known who told me I'd been a big benefit. I remembered the guys I was terminally lonely. I remembered the guys who told me they met their wives because of me. And
Mm.
anybody who is struggling with, that really insidious feeling of misaligned purpose and lack of fit, somebody needs you. And if you're watching this, I'm glad that you've chosen to spend this time with us. I hope you've been inspired. And, Travis is saying to slide into my DMs, please do. Just,
Yes.
you are all needed. You all have a purpose.
Yes, we do. And again, big shout out to Mr. Travis Latchner for the opportunity to get to meet Alex and the opportunity to bring this conversation to the air so everybody can see it out there. And now it is no longer mine. It is no longer yours. It is the universe's to have, and it will do whatever impact it's supposed to. So thank you so much, Alex, for coming on the show. I do appreciate it. And of course, all of you guys in the comments, in the chat, you guys are, like I always say, the lifeblood of what I do here and why I do this every single night. So you guys rocked it and appreciate it again. And thank you so much, everybody who's been a part of the Feel Good Friday crew, who comes on here, supports, helps grow, make this community what it is and how it has ever evolved. You guys rock it. And again, man, all the gratitude in the world to you, Alex, and to everybody who's been a part of this one, guys. You rocked it. So on that note, guys, that will end another week here. And I hopefully everybody goes into the weekend feeling inspired, feeling great, taking a lot about what they took in this night, ingest it, process it, let it become part of what you actually feel and believe. So thank you, Alex, again so much. Everybody else, we will be back here Monday evening, 7:30 Central Standard Time. And you guys, stay safe, stay blessed, have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Good night, everybody.
Thanks so much for having me, Gabe.
No problem, brother, man. I had a wonderful conversation. Bye, everybody.